The patrol ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was a big ship, painted in the deep blue colors of the Empire. The ship had been out here for 6 months, watching the empty space near the border. Nothing exciting ever happened in this part of the galaxy. That was about to change. Commander Al stood on the bridge of his ship, the Vigilant Eye. He was tall for a standing at about 7 feet. His skin was covered in small green scales that caught the light from the control panels. He had 4 eyes, 2 large ones in the front and 2 smaller ones on the sides of his head. This let him see in almost every direction at once. It was useful for a species that had evolved as prey animals on their home world. They had come a long way from those days. They were no longer prey. They had built ships and weapons and conquered a small empire of their own. But they had never forgotten what it felt like to be hunted. That fear lived in their bones. It made them careful. It made them watch everything. "Commander," said the sensor officer, a young named-in, "I am picking up something strange." Al turned 2 of his eyes toward the sensor station while keeping the other 2 on the main screen. "What do you see?" "There is a small ship about 200,000 kilometers from here. It is not moving. The engines appear to be dead." "What kind of ship?" In worked his controls, his clawed fingers moving quickly over the glowing buttons. "It is a human ship, Commander, a small transport, the kind they use for moving people between space stations." Felt his scales tighten against his body. Humans. He had dealt with humans before, and he did not enjoy those memories. They were a strange species. They looked weak. They had no claws, no fangs, no scales or shells to protect them. Their eyes could only see in one direction. Their ears were small and stuck to the sides of their heads. By all logic, they should have been easy prey. But they were not prey. That was the problem. Humans were predators, not the biggest or the strongest predators in the galaxy, but predators all the same. They had forward-facing eyes like all hunters. They could run for hours without stopping, chasing their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They ate meat. They formed hunting packs. And worst of all, they seemed to enjoy danger. They had learned to be very careful around humans. "Are there life signs?" Al asked. "Yes, Commander, 1 adult human, female, I think, and—" In stopped talking. His scales turned a pale gray color, which meant he was scared. "And what?" "The sensors are detecting predator sounds coming from the ship. Multiple sources. The computer says they are roars." Felt his 2 hearts beat faster. "Roars? What kind of roars?" "The computer has classified them as baby roars, Commander, juvenile predator vocalizations. There are 4 of them." Baby roars did not like the sound of that at all. Humans were known for keeping predators as pets. They lived with animals that could kill them. They slept in the same rooms as beasts with fangs and claws. They called these dangerous creatures their friends, their family, their bobbies. It was madness, complete madness. "Show me the ship," Al ordered. The main screen changed to show the human vessel. It was a small ship, maybe 30 meters long. The hull was damaged. There were burn marks and holes in the metal. One of the engine pods was completely destroyed. It looked like the ship had been in a battle. "What happened to it?" Al asked. "I do not know, Commander, but there was a pirate attack on human station Delta 9 about 4 days ago. This ship might be a survivor." Al nodded slowly. Pirates were a problem in this part of space. They attacked small stations and cargo ships, taking whatever they could steal. Usually they left survivors. Dead people could not tell other people to stay away from certain areas. Scared people could. "Try to contact the ship," Al said. The communications officer, an older named Axe, worked his station. After a moment he looked up. "I am getting a response, Commander, putting it on screen now." The image changed again. Now Al could see the inside of the human ship. It was small and cramped, with wires hanging from the ceiling and warning lights flashing everywhere. In the middle of the screen sat a human female. She looked tired. Her hair was brown and messy, pulled back behind her head. Her skin was pale and there were dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing a large piece of clothing that humans called a hoodie. It was gray and too big for her, with a pocket on the front. The pocket was moving. "This is the transport ship Lucky Penny," the human said. Her voice was rough, like she had been sleeping. I'm Meg Cooper. Please, if you can help, I really need it. My engines are gone and life support is failing. Leaned forward slightly. Meg Cooper, this is Commander Al of the patrol ship Vigilant Eye. We have detected predator sounds coming from your vessel. Please explain. The human female looked confused for a moment. Then she looked down at her hoodie pocket. Her face changed to an expression that Al had learned to recognize. Humans called it a smile. It usually meant they were happy or amused. Sometimes it meant they were about to do something dangerous. Oh, Meg said, you mean these little guys? She reached into her pocket with both hands and pulled out a small creature. It was furry with orange and white coloring. It had pointed ears, a small pink nose, and very small fangs. Its eyes were barely open, and as Al watched, it opened its mouth wide and made a sound. It was the sound his sensors had called a baby roar. It's just a kitten, Meg said. She held the tiny creature against her chest. There are 4 of them. They're only about 3 weeks old. Their mom didn't make it when the pirates hit the station. Stared at the small predator in the human's hands. He knew about Earth cats. They had studied them when they first made contact with humanity. Cats were small predators originally from the human home world. They hunted small animals. They had claws that could extend and retract. They had excellent night vision and could move almost silently. They were also one of the most popular pets on Earth. Humans kept hundreds of millions of them in their homes. They slept with them. They fed them. They spent large amounts of money on their medical care. They called them their bobbies. You are carrying predators in your clothing, Al said slowly. They're just kittens, Meg repeated. She sounded tired. They can't even walk properly yet. They need to be kept warm and my heating system is damaged. Body heat was the only option. As she spoke, 3 more small heads emerged from her hoodie. They were all different colors. One was gray, one was black, and one was white with brown spots. They all made the same sound as the first one. The baby roars. They're hungry, Meg said. I've been feeding them with a bottle, but I'm running low on formula. Please, Commander, I'm not asking for myself. These little ones didn't do anything wrong. They deserve a chance. Felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was sympathy. The human female was not begging for her own life. She was begging for the lives of 4 small predators that were not even the same species as her. This was what made humans so dangerous, not their strength or their weapons. It was their hearts. They formed bonds with everything. They adopted creatures from other species and called them family. They would die to protect things that most species would simply eat. We will send a shuttle to assist you, Al said finally. Prepare for boarding. The relief on Meg's face was visible even through the poor quality video connection. Thank you, Commander. Thank you so much. You won't regret this. Al was not so sure about that. The shuttle launched from the Vigilant Eye 20 minutes later, had selected his best repair crew for the mission. He had also sent 4 security officers just in case. He did not think the human female was dangerous, but he had learned never to underestimate humans. He watched through the shuttle's cameras as it approached the damaged transport. Up close, the Lucky Penny looked even worse. There were at least a dozen holes in the hull, all of them sealed with emergency patches. The ship had taken heavy damage and somehow survived. The human female is alone, reported the shuttle commander, a veteran officer named Al. No other life signs except for the small creatures. Proceed with caution, Al ordered. Remember, humans are unpredictable. Understood, Commander. The shuttle docked with the Lucky Penny through an emergency airlock. The seal was not perfect and could hear the hiss of escaping air through the communication channel. The human ship was in very bad shape. Al was the first through the airlock. He was carrying a scanner in one hand and had his other hand near his weapon. Behind him came the repair crew and the other security officers. The inside of the human ship was worse than the outside. The lights were flickering. Several panels had been removed from the walls, showing the wires and pipes behind them. There were scorch marks on the floor and ceiling. The air smelled like smoke and something else that Al did not recognize. Human female, Al called out. We are here to help. Please show yourself. I'm in here, came a voice from further inside the ship. The cockpit. Sorry I can't come to you, I'm kind of stuck. Al moved carefully through the ship. His eyes scanned every shadow, every corner. He had been trained to expect threats from anywhere. When he reached the cockpit, he stopped and stared. Meg Cooper was sitting in the pilot's chair. She could not get up because 4 small creatures were sleeping on her lap and chest. They were piled on top of each other like a furry blanket, their tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. Occasionally, one of them would yawn, showing its small fangs. Baby roars. They just fell asleep, Meg said quietly. I don't want to wake them, they've had a rough few days. Al did not know what to say. He had expected many things when he boarded this ship. He had expected danger, maybe violence. He had not expected to find a human female held prisoner by sleeping infant predators. The repair crew will begin work on your engines, Al said finally. Is there anything else you need? Food would be nice for me and for them. Meg nodded toward the kittens. They need special formula. I don't suppose you have anything like that on your ship. I will ask the commander. Al backed away slowly, as if he was afraid of waking the small predators. He returned to the shuttle and contacted the vigilant eye. Commander, he said, the human female is unharmed. She is requesting food for herself and for the bobbies. Had been watching through Al's camera. He had seen the kittens piled on the human's lap. He had heard the baby roars. He was still trying to understand what he was seeing. What kind of food do the creatures need? He asked. She says they need special formula. I believe it is a type of liquid food for juvenile mammals. Thought for a moment, they did not have mammal formula on their ship. They were reptiles. They laid eggs. The concept of feeding milk to bobbies was strange to them. Can we make something suitable? He asked his science officer. The science officer, a small named-in, pulled up information on her screen. I can try, Commander. I have data on Earth cat biology. Their young require a mixture of proteins, fats, and certain vitamins. I might be able to create something similar using our food synthesizers. Do it, Al ordered, and prepare a meal for the human as well. While the science officer worked, Al continued to watch the repair crew through their cameras. They were working on the Lucky Penny's engines, replacing damaged parts and reconnecting severed wires. It was slow work, but they were making progress. Through it all, Meg Cooper sat in her pilot's chair with 4 kittens sleeping on her body. She talked to the repair crew while they worked, asking them questions about their ship and their species. She seemed genuinely interested in the answers. So you guys evolved from prey animals? She asked at one point. That's really interesting. On Earth, most of the smart species were either predators or prey that learned to work together in groups. They learned to work together to survive, said one of the repair crew, a young female named Ra. We were hunted by many predators on our home world. We had to become smart and careful to survive. That makes sense. Humans were kind of in the middle. We weren't the biggest predators on Earth, but we weren't really prey either. We learned to work together and make tools. Eventually, we became the top predators on the planet. Ra looked up from her work. You became the top predators, but you have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. Meg smiled. It was the same smile she had shown when she first revealed the kittens. We made our own weapons. We're really good at making things. This was true, Al knew. Humans had started with sticks and rocks. Now they had ships that could cross the galaxy and weapons that could destroy planets. They had gone from prey to apex predator in a remarkably short time. The formula is ready, Commander, In reported. I have also prepared a standard protein meal for the human. Send it over on the supply shuttle. A small drone launched from the Vigilant Eye carrying the food and formula. It arrived at the Lucky Penny a few minutes later. Al took the supplies and brought them to Meg. Oh, thank goodness, Meg said when she saw the bottle of formula. These little ones are going to be so hungry when they wake up. She took the food and set it beside her chair. Then she looked at the protein meal that had been prepared for her. It was a gray block that did not look very appetizing. Is this what you guys eat? She asked. It contains all the nutrients and needs, Al said. I do not know if it is suitable for humans. Meg picked up the block and took a small bite. She chewed slowly, her face showing concentration. Then she shrugged. Not bad, actually. Kind of tastes like tofu, thanks. She ate the rest of the block while the repair crew continued their work. The kittens started to wake up about halfway through her meal. They stretched their tiny bodies and made small sounds that were somewhere between meows and roars. "Okay, Bobbies," Meg said softly. "Time for food." She picked up the first kitten, the orange and white one, and held it carefully in one hand. With her other hand, she picked up the bottle of formula and brought it to the kitten's mouth. The tiny creature started drinking immediately, its paws kneading the air as it ate. "This one is Pumpkin," Meg said. "The gray one is Smoky, the black one is Shadow, and the spotted one is Patches." Al watched this process with a mixture of fascination and horror. The human was nomming the predators. She was feeding them like they were her own young. She was treating them as family. "Why do you do this?" he asked finally. Meg looked up from the kitten. "Do what?" "Care for these creatures. They are not your species. They cannot help you. They are only a burden." Meg was quiet for a moment. She finished feeding Pumpkin and set him down gently on her lap. Then she picked up Smokey and started the process again. "I found them in the wreckage of the station," she said softly. "Their mother was dead. She had hidden them in a storage compartment, probably trying to protect them when the pirates attacked. They were crying. Just these tiny, helpless things crying for their mom." She paused to adjust the bottle. Smokey was drinking greedily. "I couldn't leave them there. I know it doesn't make sense. I know I was barely going to survive myself. But I couldn't just let them die. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just bobbies." Al did not understand. His species did not form bonds like this. Cared for their own young, of course, but they would never risk their lives for the offspring of another species. It was not logical. "Your survival chances would have been higher without them," he said. Meg nodded. "Probably, but what kind of person would I be if I left 4 helpless bobbies to die? What would that say about me?" "It would say that you are practical, that you understand survival. It would say that I'm a monster." Meg looked directly at Al with her strange, forward-facing eyes. "There are some things more important than survival, you know. Being able to live with yourself is one of them." Al had no response to this. He turned away and went to check on the repair crew's progress. The repairs took 6 hours. During that time, Meg fed all 4 kittens twice, changed their bedding, and cleaned up several small accidents. She did all of this while sitting in her pilot's chair, unable to move much because the kittens refused to leave her lap. Al watched all of it through the cameras. He watched the human female care for the infant predators with patience and gentleness. He watched her talk to them in soft tones, calling them sweet names and telling them everything would be okay. He had studied humans for years. He had read reports about their strange behaviors and their inexplicable attachment to other species. But he had never seen it up close like this. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "Commander," In said from her station, "I have been analyzing the humans' behavior. I believe I understand why they form these bonds." "Explain." "Humans are social predators. They evolved in groups where cooperation was essential for survival. But their cooperation was not limited to their own species. They formed partnerships with other animals, particularly dogs and cats. These partnerships benefited both species." "How did keeping predators benefit the humans?" "Dogs helped them hunt and protected them from other predators. Cats killed small pests that ate their food supplies. In return, humans provided food and shelter. It was a mutual relationship." "Considered this, so the bond-forming behavior is practical." "Originally, yes, but over time it became more than that. Humans began to see these animals as family members. They developed emotional connections that went beyond practical benefit. They started caring for animals simply because they wanted to, not because they needed to." "That seems inefficient." It made a sound that was the equivalent of a shrug. "Perhaps, but it also makes them extremely loyal. A human who has formed a bond will fight to protect that bond. They will risk their lives, their resources, everything they have. This makes them powerful allies and dangerous enemies." thought about this as he watched Meg Cooper cuddle one of the kittens against her cheek. The tiny predator was purring, a sound that the sensors had not classified. It was a low, rhythmic vibration that seemed to indicate contentment. "If we help this human," Al said slowly, "will she consider us allies?" "Possibly. Humans are known to remember both kindness and cruelty. If we assist her, she may feel grateful. If we abandon her, she will definitely remember that too." It was something to consider. The Empire was not at war with humanity, but they were not exactly friends either. Relations between the two species were cautious and careful. Any opportunity to improve those relations could be valuable. "Continue monitoring the repairs," Al ordered. "I want that ship functional as soon as possible." The Lucky Penny's engines came back online just after the 6-hour mark. They were not perfect, but they were good enough to get the ship to the nearest human station. Meg Cooper thanked the repair crew with tears in her eyes. "You saved our lives," she said. "All 5 of us, I don't know how to repay you." "No payment is necessary," Al said stiffly. "We were simply doing our duty." "Then thank you for doing your duty." Meg smiled at him. "If you're ever near Human Station Echo 7, look me up. I'll buy you dinner, or whatever you guys eat." Al did not know what to say to this, so he simply nodded and retreated to the shuttle. The crew returned to the Vigilant Eye, leaving Meg alone with her kittens. Watched as the Lucky Penny's engines powered up and the ship began to move slowly toward human space. "Should we escort her?" In asked. Considered it. The human ship was damaged and slow. It would be vulnerable to pirates or other threats. But escorting her would take them far from their patrol route. It would require explaining their actions to their superiors. "No," he said finally. "She will be fine. Humans are survivors." He watched the Lucky Penny until it was just a small dot on his screen. Then he turned away and returned to his normal duties. But he could not stop thinking about what he had seen. 3 weeks later, Al received a message through official diplomatic channels. It was from the Human Alliance, addressed specifically to him. He opened it with curiosity. The message contained a video file. When Al played it, he saw Meg Cooper sitting in a clean, well-lit room. She looked much healthier than before. Her hair was neat and the dark circles under her eyes were gone. She was smiling. "Commander Al," she said, "I wanted to thank you properly for what you did. You and your crew saved my life, and more importantly, you saved my Bobby's." She reached down and picked up a kitten. It was larger now, about twice the size it had been on the damaged ship. Al recognized the orange and white coloring. "This is Pumpkin. Say hi to the nice commander, Pumpkin." She waved the kitten's paw at the camera. The kitten yawned, showing its fangs, which were also bigger now. "The vets say all 4 of them are perfectly healthy. They're going to grow up to be big, strong cats, and it's all thanks to you." Meg set Pumpkin down and looked directly at the camera. "I know this might not mean much to you. I know that don't really understand why humans care so much about animals. But what you did matters. You stopped to help when you didn't have to. You provided food and repairs and kindness when you could have just ignored us." She paused, and Al saw something glisten in her eyes. Tears, he thought. Humans leaked water from their eyes when they felt strong emotions. "I'm going to name one of the cats after you. Not Pumpkin, he already has his name. But I'm getting another cat next month, a rescue from a shelter. I'm going to call him. I hope that's okay." Al did not know what to say. He had never had a creature named after him before. He was not sure how he felt about sharing his name with an Earth predator. "Anyway, I just wanted you to know that you made a difference. You saved 5 lives that day, and none of us will ever forget it." The video ended. Sat in his chair for a long time, staring at the blank screen. "Commander," In asked, "are you all right?" "Yes," Al said slowly. "I am fine. I was just thinking." "About what?" "About humans. About why they are the way they are. About what it means that they would name a predator after someone who helped them." In waited for more, but Al did not continue. After a moment, the sensor officer returned to his station. Al pulled up the database entry on humans and began to read. He had studied this information many times before, but he felt like he was seeing it differently now. The facts were the same. Humans were social predators who formed bonds with other species. They kept pets. They adopted orphans. They cried when creatures died and celebrated when they were born. But the facts did not capture what Al had witnessed. They did not explain the look on Meg Cooper's face when she fed those kittens. They did not describe the way she had held them against her body to keep them warm. They did not convey the depths of her gratitude when they saved them. Humans were more than facts and figures. They were feelings and connections and loyalties that did not make logical sense. They were strong because they cared too much, not because they cared too little. And that, Al realized, was what made them truly dangerous. A species that would risk everything for 4 baby predators would risk everything for each other too. They would fight to protect their friends and family. They would sacrifice themselves for their bonds. They would never give up, never surrender, never stop caring. They had always wondered what made humans so successful. They had studied human technology and tactics, human society and psychology. They had looked for weaknesses and found very few, but they had been asking the wrong question. The question was not what made humans successful. The question was what made humans human. And now Al knew the answer. It was love, plain and simple. Humans loved things. They loved their families, their friends, their pets, their homes, their ideals. They loved so much and so deeply that they would do anything to protect what they loved. Other species feared death. Humans feared losing what they loved, and that made them unstoppable. Al closed the database and leaned back in his chair. He had learned something important today. He was not sure what to do with that knowledge yet, but he knew it would change how he saw humans forever. 6 months later, Al received another message from Meg Cooper. This one contained several pictures. The first showed the 4 original kittens, now fully grown cats. Pumpkin had become a large orange tabby. Smokey was a sleek gray cat with bright green eyes. Shadow was pure black with yellow eyes, and Patches had grown into a beautiful spotted cat with a gentle expression. The second picture showed a new cat, smaller than the others, with blue-gray fur. This one was labeled. The third picture showed all 5 cats piled together on a soft bed, sleeping in a heap of fur and warmth. The message that came with the pictures was short. "The family is complete. Thank you for making it possible. You will always be welcome in our home." Al saved the message in his personal files. He looked at the picture of the cat named after him, this small predator that had been given his name because he had stopped to help a human in need. It was a strange honor, but somehow it felt right. Years passed. Al continued his patrols, watching the borders of space. He encountered many humans over the years, traders and diplomats and occasional refugees. Each time he remembered Meg Cooper and her kittens. Each time he treated the humans with a little more patience, a little more understanding. Word spread through the fleet about the commander who had helped a human and her baby predators. Some officers thought he was foolish. Others were curious. A few began to think about humans differently because of his story. 10 years after the incident, Al was promoted to admiral. He was given command of an entire sector of space, including several systems that bordered human territory. It was a position of great responsibility, and Al took it seriously. One of his first acts as admiral was to establish new protocols for dealing with human vessels in distress. The protocols were simple. Any ship that encountered a damaged human vessel was required to offer assistance. This included providing food, repairs, and medical care if needed. When asked why he had created these protocols, Al gave a simple answer. "Humans remember kindness," he said. "They also remember cruelty. I would rather they remember us as friends than as enemies." Some of his fellow admirals questioned this approach. They pointed out that they had no obligation to help humans. They argued that resources spent on human ships could be better used elsewhere. Listened to their arguments, then he told them about Meg Cooper. He told them about the damaged ship drifting in space. He told them about the sensor readings that said baby roars detected. He told them about the human female with 4 infant predators tucked into her clothing, keeping them warm with her own body heat. He told them about how she had begged for the lives of creatures that were not even her own species. He told them about how she had named a cat after him. He told them about the message that said he would always be welcome in her home. When he was finished, the other admirals were quiet. One act of kindness, Al said, created a bond that has lasted for years. Imagine what many acts of kindness could create. Imagine if humans saw thee as friends instead of strangers. Imagine if we had their loyalty instead of their suspicion. The protocols were approved unanimously. 15 years after Al saved Meg Cooper, the Galactic Council faced a crisis. A new threat had emerged from beyond the known territories. A species called the Eth was expanding rapidly, conquering worlds and enslaving populations. They were powerful, numerous, and ruthless. The Council debated how to respond. Some members wanted to fight, others wanted to negotiate. Still others wanted to run and hide, hoping the Eth would not find them. The human representative stood up and made a proposal. She suggested an alliance, a unified fleet from all Council species, to stand against the Eth together. It was a bold plan, but it would require trust between species that had never worked together before. When she finished speaking, the representative stood up. It was Admiral Al. "Though we'll join this alliance," he said. "We will stand with humanity against the Eth." There were murmurs of surprise throughout the chamber. They were known for their caution, their reluctance to take risks. They rarely committed to alliances. "Admiral," said the council chair, "are you certain? This is a significant commitment." "I am certain," Al said. "Years ago I helped a human in need. She was stranded in space with 4 baby predators in her clothing. She had no weapons, no power, no hope. But she refused to abandon those creatures. She kept them alive with her own body heat." He paused, looking around the chamber. "That human taught me something important about her species. Humans do not abandon those they care about. They will fight, sacrifice, and die for their loved ones. And once you earn their loyalty, they will extend that same protection to you." He turned to face the human representative directly. "The stand with humanity because humanity has shown us what it means to be loyal. We have seen your kindness. We have felt your gratitude. We know that if we stand beside you now, you will stand beside us when we need you." The human representative smiled. It was the same smile that Meg Cooper had given Al all those years ago. "Thank you, Admiral," she said. "The human alliance accepts your partnership with gratitude. We will not forget this." One by one, other species began to stand. The Nexus Collective. Species that had been rivals for centuries put aside their differences and joined the alliance. Within an hour, the largest military coalition in galactic history had been formed. The war against the Eth lasted 3 years. It was brutal and costly, with millions of casualties on all sides. But in the end, the alliance prevailed. The Eth were defeated, their empire shattered, their threat ended. During the victory celebration, Al received a special visitor. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but he recognized her immediately. "Meg Cooper," he said, "it has been a long time." She smiled at him. "Admiral Al, or should I call you the hero of the Alliance?" "I am no hero. I simply did what was right." "That's exactly what heroes say." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small object. "I brought you something." It was a photograph in a simple frame. The picture showed 5 cats arranged on a comfortable bed. Al recognized them immediately. Pumpkin, Smokey, Shadow, Patches, and the small blue-gray cat named. "They all passed away a few years ago," Meg said. "Old age, they had good lives, all of them, but I wanted you to have this, to remember." Al took the photograph carefully. He looked at the image of the cats, these small predators that had started everything. They looked peaceful, content, loved. "Thank you," he said. "I will treasure this." "I also wanted to tell you something." Meg's voice was soft now, serious. "When you saved us all those years ago, you didn't just save 5 lives, you changed the future." "What do you mean?" "I became an ambassador because of what happened. I spent my career building bridges between humans and other species. I told your story to everyone who would listen. And when the time came to form the alliance, people remembered. They remembered that a commander had stopped to help a human and her kittens. They remembered that kindness was possible, even between strangers." She reached out and took his clawed hand in her small human one. "You helped win this war, Al, not just with ships and weapons, but with compassion. You showed the galaxy that different species could care for each other, and that made the alliance possible." Felt a strange sensation in his chest. It took him a moment to identify it. It was pride. Not the pride of victory or conquest, but the pride of knowing he had made a difference. "I only stopped to help a damaged ship," he said. "You stopped to help a stranger who was carrying baby predators in her hoodie. That's not nothing, Admiral, that's everything." Meg squeezed his hand once, then let go. "The cats were right about you," she said. "You have a good heart, even if it's a heart." She turned and walked away, leaving Al alone with his photograph and his memories. 20 years after the war ended, Admiral Al retired from active service. He returned to where he lived quietly in a small house near the ocean. He spent his days reading, writing his memoirs, and receiving occasional visitors. The photograph of Meg Cooper's cats hung on his wall, in a place of honor near his favorite chair. Young officers often came to see him, wanting to hear stories about the war and the alliance. Al told them many things, but he always ended with the same story. The story of the damaged ship in the border zone, the sensor readings that said baby roars detected, and the human female who refused to abandon 4 infant predators. "Never underestimate kindness," he would tell them. "Never dismiss compassion as weakness. The bonds we form with others, even with strangers, even with different species, those bonds have power. They can change individuals, change nations, change the course of history." He would point to the photograph on his wall. "I helped one human and her kittens. It took me 6 hours and cost me nothing but some fuel and food. And because of that small act, I gained a friend, earned the trust of her species, and helped build an alliance that saved billions of lives." The young officers would listen with wide eyes, trying to understand. Some of them got it. Some of them did not. But Al kept telling the story anyway because it was important. Because the galaxy needed to know that they were not just warriors and bureaucrats. They were capable of kindness. They were capable of connection. They were capable of love in their own careful, cautious way. And it had started with 4 kittens and their baby roars. On the last day of his life, Admiral Al sat in his favorite chair, looking out at the ocean. The waves were gentle, rolling in and out with the eternal rhythm of the tide. The sky was pink and gold with the setting sun. He held the photograph of the cats in his hands. He had looked at it thousands of times over the years, but he never grew tired of it. It reminded him of the day his life changed, the day he learned what it truly meant to be a hero. Not conquering enemies or winning battles, not gaining power or glory, just helping someone who needed help, just showing kindness when it would have been easier to look away. That was heroism. That was the heart of everything good in the galaxy, and a human with kittens in her hoodie had taught him that lesson. Al closed his eyes and smiled. When they found him the next morning, the photograph was still in his hands. At his memorial service, ambassadors from a dozen species came to pay their respects. They spoke of his military achievements, his diplomatic successes, his role in winning the war against the Eth. But the most memorable speech came from an old human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "I knew Admiral Al before he was famous," Meg Cooper said. "I knew him when he was just a commander on a patrol ship, doing his job in the border zones. And I can tell you that the man you're honoring today is the same man I met all those years ago." She paused, gathering herself. "He stopped to help me when he didn't have to. He saved me and 4 little kittens because it was the right thing to do. And that one act of kindness rippled outward, touching more lives than he ever knew." She looked out at the assembled crowd, species from across the galaxy, united by their respect for one admiral. "Be like Al," she said. "Stop to help those in need. Show kindness to strangers. Form bonds across the boundaries of species and culture. Because you never know where those bonds will lead. You never know how one small act of compassion might change the galaxy." She stepped back from the podium, tears streaming down her face. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then someone began to clap. It was an officer, one of the young ones who had visited Al in his retirement. Others joined in. Soon the whole assembly was applauding, a thunder of sound that echoed across the memorial ground. Meg Cooper closed her eyes and remembered. She remembered the cold, dark ship, the dying engines, the 4 tiny kittens in her hoodie. She remembered the moment when a face appeared on her screen, stern and cautious, asking about the baby roars. She remembered being afraid that they would leave her to die. She remembered the flood of relief when they offered to help instead. And she remembered the years that followed. The friendship, the alliance, the war, the peace. All of it traced back to that one moment when a stranger chose kindness over indifference. The baby roars had changed everything, and they would echo through history forever. The end.